It's time for the next session. I hope everybody had very nice lunch in newly redecorated and restored Riga birth house, which we are very proud of. Presumably when Latvia will have its presidency in 2015, we will be able to enjoy this building as well for international gatherings. But now we have to move to a little bit further region from the previous discussions, and this panel is devoted to Central Asia and Afghanistan. And I would like to remind our distinguished audience that the first Riga conference took place in 2006. And since this conference, always we had Afghanistan panel. For 6 years in a row, Afghanistan was debated here in Riga. So it means that it's not so distant country and so distant area, but it is very much here. It's very much in minds of Latvian, Baltic, Nordic, and also European and transatlantic people. Probably what is the difference in previous conferences, we were discussing how NATO is coping with challenges, what strategies should be applied and developed, how to propose and to develop exit strategy. And I'm very happy that this time we are not talking only about NATO involvement in Afghanistan, but we are talking about the region in a much wider perspective. We are talking about economic growth, we are talking about changes in civil society, we are talking about regional setting, about neighboring countries, and we are looking at this part of the world as very crucial, not only to Europeans, but really to transatlantic area as such. And I'm also very happy that previous panels very nicely feeded into this particular discussion, because the issue about economic crisis in Europe, it very much refers also to abilities of European countries to be involved in Central Asia. We were discussing about successful story of Baltic cooperation and Baltic-Nordic cooperation. So success of regional cooperation could be also exported to this area. We also address such issue as neighborhood policy. In a previous session we discussed Russia. So now we could a little bit move our minds to other neighborhood and to other neighboring countries which are around Afghanistan. Prior to this panel, we already had a short discussion with Afghanistan's ambassador in Nordic countries, Ambassador Bakhtari, and she stated that the tone of the discussion here was a little bit, let's say, already stereotypically minded that Afghanistan, it's a very difficult case, which indeed it is. But on the other hand, probably we are neglecting those positive changes which are taking place in this country. And prior to this discussion, I looked into some statistics. And of course, the first figures which you find are regarding unemployment, about poverty level, about education of women, and so on. But on the other hand, you can find also very positive figures like GDP growth per year. It's about 8 to 9%. Export is expanded. The Human Development Index is growing from 0.25 in 2002, and now it's 0.371. So there are a lot of potential in this country and a lot of positive developments in general. So now let's move to our panel, and I will introduce our distinguished speakers. The first one is Valdis Kristovskis, who is Latvian Minister of Foreign Affairs. And Valdis Kristovskis dealt with Afghani and Central Asia issues for a very long time when being a Minister of Defense, then serving in European Parliament, and now from foreign policy perspective. The second speaker of the panel is Ms. Madina Jarbussynova, and she is Ambassador at Large from Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Republic of Kazakhstan, and she also served in different positions in Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But I'm very happy that you are also university professor, so welcome, colleague, and we will be very interested to find out what is Kazakh's perspective on Central Asia and Afghanistan issues. The second speaker is Ambassador Valdis, who is EU Special Representative and the head of EU mission to Afghanistan. And we both are very proud that you were the first ambassador appointed from our countries. And actually we also met during our university different kind of activities several years ago. And Mr. Šackas was also Lithuanian ambassador at the United States. And also Minister of Foreign Affairs. And then we had a very distinguished guest on our panel. It's Ambassador Manizha Bakhtari, who is Afghanistan's ambassador in Nordic countries. So welcome, and your experience also covers different areas of foreign policy. You also have lecturing experience, and you are also a writer. So we have very interesting, very diverse panel, and of course there are very different issues which we are going to address. Starting our discussion, I would like to ask each panelist to make a diagnosis of what's happening in this region. So what is the state of affairs? What kind of analysis of the picture you could provide? Mr. Kristovskis, please.
Thank you, Professor Ozoliņa. It's a pleasure to speak about such a very important question. No doubt, region, Central Asian region and Afghanistan is among topicalities of international policy and also for Latvia. Of course, every state evaluates the situation from its own platform and perspective. I would like to say that Latvia is involved in that region since ISAF mission was placed there, and Latvia participates with our company and doing this all these years. From my point of view, of course, we should discuss such aspects as security developments, economic developments of the region, and different interests which has scope to there. Very important aspects are reintegration and reconciliation of society, and of course our EU and NATO strategies there. In this scope, I would like to say that is approaching already year 2014, which is announced as a year when military forces is drawn down, and more Afghans is managing their state by ourselves. This really is very important. That's why also Latvia is interested not just to continue our military presence, but be more and more involved in civil responsibilities, in civil programs. Latvia, of course, have different interests. It's not just a direct interest or indirect interest, but from different scope we should look on this aspect. It seems for our society that we are quite in distance from Afghanistan. That's why not is exactly clear for our society what's going on and why Latvia should continue to participate. But it's becoming more clear for our people when we saying that, of course, 90% of opium or drugs, which is already also partly coming to our society, really comes from that region. That's why we really have direct security interest to have stability in that region. Indirectly, of course, we looking forward for international peace and stability. No doubt we are part of international process. We wish the successful exit strategy from there and some economic strategy which should be implemented. Latvia participated already in several civil projects which is related with human rights, which is related with water supply programs and so. From this perspective, we will continue. And I believe that international society and NATO exit strategy really should be very effective, aimful, because if it will fail, then of course NATO and EU and Euro-Atlantic society will lose some of this impact.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Before I give floor to our next speaker, I would like to remind that our conference is online, so greetings to everyone who is watching us online. So please don't forget to write your questions to the panelists. So, Madam Jarbussynova, you are exactly the person from the region. You face progressive and also sometimes some unfortunate events exactly on your daily basis. Could please you give your vision of this region?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the organizers of the conference and the Latvian side for the hospitality extended to the participants of the conference during these 2 days. And I also want to mention that I'm glad to see that here during this panel we have some gender changes. Not only men presentation, but also female. And it's very important that this comes from Asia, this difference in gender presentation, showing the importance in our countries we pay to development of women activities and to increase of women participation into all issues, security including. And speaking about Central Asian security, of course, I will mention the same challenges which were discussed during the previous panels. The same challenges European security faces, I mean the terrorism, religious extremism, drug trafficking, illegal migration. To these so-called traditional challenges, I may add some problems which we face in our region, environmental problems, water issues, some problems connected with the transportation of goods and services. And it shows that just enumeration of these challenges shows that we really face common threats, and we have elaborate effective measures in close cooperation. With this in mind, we in our region, I mean Kazakhstan, try to bring more of our national efforts in the development of cooperation between Central Asian states in all areas. And these issues were in the focus of our attention during our chairmanship last year in the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and I think we managed to achieve some goals as during our chairmanship. We managed to bring the Euro-Atlantic and Eurasian security community concept into our Astana summit declaration. And it was a manifestation of the fact that our Central Asian region is looked upon as an integral part of the transcontinental security structure building process. And during our chairmanship, we broadened the geographical area of our interest, of the interest of the organization, and we brought the issue of Afghanistan security into the agenda, and not only when there were meetings of the Asian partners of the OSCE organization, but when we discussed the issues in all three OSCE dimensions. And of course we in Central Asia want our region not to be so much associated with the threats and conflicts and crises, and that's why we try to shift more attention to the economic cooperation among Central Asian states, and being a leader in the region and manifesting economic growth in our own country. We of course assist our neighbors in changing the situation in economy, and also in other dimension in the political process. The assessment of the World Bank, the report which was prepared this year, called World Development Report 2011, Conflict, Security and Development, shows that the experts who prepared the report estimate the development in the regional cooperation of Central Asian states not very progressive, and they even prognose possible conflict and say that the risks are increasing. And the authors of the report underline that the participation of the foreign stakeholders, even if they achieve some results in the number of different meetings and have success in mediating on the different issues the region face, there won't be effective results if the countries of the region themselves do not activize their cooperation and pay more attention to the urgent problems. And they underline that the necessity in the development of the cooperation is very high and very urgent. And actually, Neil, the same conclusion made the participants of the video conference, which took place just last week, and it connected Astana, Moscow, Bishkek, and Washington. The conference was prior to the 10th anniversary commemorating the September 11, and the participants came to the conclusion that the situation in Central Asia hasn't changed so much as far as the elimination of the threats faced by the region, and that much depends upon the countries of the region. Of course, there is a great influence of Afghanistan, security in Afghanistan on the security in Asia. But more than this, the governments of the area should pay more attention to the solution of the economic and social problems. And behind the conflicts which happened in Uzbekistan, in Kyrgyzstan, we see the to some extent not effective governance, absence of effective solution of poverty, economic issues, corruption, and not so much interethnic or confessional reasons.
Thank you very much. We could definitely continue on those issues. Particularly, you mentioned domestic situation in regional countries, also not effective governance and other extremely important issues. But now I would like to give floor to Ambassador Ušackas. The EU's involvement in Afghanistan is really very substantial in terms of finances. Since 2002, it's 8 billion euros, different programs, projects supporting security sector, police training and other issues. 65% almost of Reconstruction Trust Fund comes from the EU and its member states. So how you would evaluate the situation?
Well, thank you very much, Žanete. First of all, I think it's important to remind why we are in Afghanistan, what we're doing. And we're in Afghanistan because of 9/11s, because, 48 nations under the ISAF flags have came to Afghanistan to deprive this country from governance of Taliban and to make sure that Afghanistan will never become a harbor for international terrorism. What are the outcomes? What are the outputs of our engagement? Yes, Osama bin Laden is gone. Taliban is deprived from the government. However, we still have insurgency, which goes across the borders of Pakistan and Afghanistan, and we cannot be complacent about the years to come. Having said this, again, I want to underline that thanks to the international community's involvement, European Union, Americans, India, Japan, Australia, and others, significant progress has been made in Afghanistan, which we often underestimate. The fact alone that 20% of people now are able to live 20% longer than it was, expectancy is 20% longer than it was in 2001 is one factor. The fact that the girls and boys can go back to the school and 8 million children attending the school every day, while it was only 1 million in 2001, and the girls were not allowed to go to school at all. And the health sector, the primary health sector, is provided to 64% of population in Afghanistan, while in 2001 it was only 6%. Having said this, the mission is not accomplished, and I think it's important to be in mind that it will require staying power from all of us. I think it would be simplistic to say that Afghanistan is facing only social economical problems. Afghanistan faces hard security problems. And those problems can be only addressed by the Afghans themselves. First and foremost, by strengthening Afghan security forces, and that's what we as the donors, including European Union, contribute every year in training civilian police. That's a niche what the UPOL mission in Afghanistan is doing, while at the same time NATO training mission, NTMA, is developing and strengthening Afghan security forces, Afghan National Army. We will have to deal also with the sustainability of Afghan security forces beyond 2014. A second area where we need to help Afghans is indeed governance. Governance in terms not only of that Kabul would function, but also that we would see that subnational governance is in place. And I think transition, as Ambassador could attest, is helping to discover or to rediscover Afghanistan in terms of the need and significance of local governance and the justice sector. There's another aspect which you have addressed through the regional cooperation. I'm struck after a year and a half being in Afghanistan and traveling in the region, India, Pakistan, elsewhere, how underdeveloped is regional cooperation in Central and Southern Asia. While we have different initiatives, but it has not yet materialized in a real forum which would contribute to stability, trust, and understanding. From my point of view, I think there are three aspects where the region has to stand up and to show leadership. First, they need to have real tough discussions among the leaders on security aspects, on confidence-building measures, something what Europe has injected in 1974, like Helsinki Pact or Helsinki process. We are very far away from this kind of status. However, I hope that the Istanbul Conference of the Ministers, which will take place on the 2nd of November, and due to the Afghan leadership in coming with some very compelling ideas, may launch a discussion, at least a debate, on the confidence-building measures in the region. The second area is indeed of significance, which was referred to, is economic development. While it was mentioned the growth of GDP of Afghanistan 8 to 9%, let's be honest among ourselves, that growth is only thanks to the ISAF forces and international presence. 90% of the Afghan budget is generated from international presence. I mean, we have to see how we're going to manage after 2014, when the decrease of GDP may be as sharp as -30%, while in Greece is only -13%, and we'll have to make sure that we have at least rudimental capabilities of the Afghans to manage what we have constructed in Afghanistan, and then we'll have to see how we're going to sustain of investment we made in security sector in particular. In that context, again, we have to help Afghans to address the untapped potential of their own natural resources. What they have, the estimates from both from the Russians, and from American studies suggest that it might be as big as from $3 to $7 billion of natural resources, lithium, gold, oil, and gas. There are some first investments being made by the Chinese. The JP Morgan is putting a consortium for gold mines, but it's only very beginning. Having said this, having in mind that Afghanistan is a landlocked country, they won't be able to export the goods if there is no, first of all, political understanding and appreciation, the commitment from the neighboring countries to help to put infrastructure in place and to help the country export the mineral wealth in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's very important that you underline that it's not only because of some other factors, but it's ISAF which also contributes to situation in Afghanistan, because otherwise we are always discussing issues regarding ISAF as military mission, but it has a lot of civilian potential and civilian results as well. So thank you very much. And now I would like to give floor to Ambassador Bakhtari, so how you would react to visions which were already expressed here, and how do you see future of the region in general?
Thank you indeed, Professor Žanete. Allow me to start by thanking the organizer of this distinguished conference. I enjoyed all discussion yesterday and today. But I must say, from yesterday's discussion, I got some points which made me disappointed regarding Afghanistan, because some analysis and some comments were like this, that Afghanistan has gone, Afghanistan is dead, and there is no opportunity, no hopes for Afghanistan and for the people of Afghanistan. I must say that Afghanistan is alive with millions of people. There is still life going on, and lot of opportunities and lot of hopes, lot of ambitions in Afghanistan. Just let me point out some achievements and some transformation which we have made since past 10 years, as our panelists as well mentioned about these achievements and transformation in Afghanistan. Let's not be forgetting that Afghanistan is a war-torn country, a shattered war country, and we cannot expect a magic solution, and we cannot expect to build everything over the night, but over the time. So we need for patience, especially for strategic patience in terms of solving problems in Afghanistan and in the region. We have made our constitution, which is based on international values and international principles. As Ambassador told, now there are more than 8 million children who are going to the schools, and I think it's a big number comparing with 2001, which there was only 1 million school children. Now there is more than 75,000 students going to the universities. Now we have more than 20 universities in Afghanistan. Our media is brilliant. More than 20 TV networks are broadcasting in Afghanistan, and more than 700 media outlets who are mainly critical against the government, and it means that there is a civil society and some pillars of democracy. Regarding the security, we cannot hide the critical security situation in Afghanistan. It's really critical. And by 2014, Afghanistan officials and authorities will hand over the security responsibilities. We are ready for this because we are seeking for Afghan ownership and Afghan leadership. It's the most important thing for us, having this goal with us. So now we are on the process of establishing and rebuilding our security forces. That security forces which totally destroyed during 90s, during the Mujahideen period. It totally gone, but now we establish it again, and now we are in the process of training and equipping this security forces, and we have achieved main and major achievements regarding this security forces in Afghanistan. But it doesn't mean that we do not need international community's assistance and help. Still, we need your help and your assistance. The other important thing which I would like to mention is about the conference on Bonn this December, second Bonn conference, and in this conference we will review Afghanistan's relations with international community, and we will review our relations and our cooperation, and in this reviewing we will find where is our major mistakes. Because yesterday one of our panelists said that Afghanistan was a mistake. I must say that it was not a mistake being in Afghanistan. I mean the presence of international community in Afghanistan. It is by itself, it was not a mistake. It was, as President Obama said, it was not a choice, it was a necessity because we needed on that time the international community's support to fight against the international terrorism. When we are talking about the terrorism, when we are talking about the narcotics, about the trafficking, we should not forget the region, because mostly people focus on Afghanistan when we are talking about these subjects. But these subjects are mainly regional aspects, regional issues, not only Afghanistan issue, not only related to Afghanistan, because terrorism is something which not provided in Afghanistan. We are only the victim of terrorism because on that time we were weak, our state institutions were weak, then the terrorists could seek a safe haven in Afghanistan. Let's talk a bit about some mistakes which international community made in Afghanistan. That's now a general subject when we are talking about Afghanistan. Just blame Afghanistan's government and Afghanistan's people and about the corruption, about the weak governance and these kind of things. But no one talks about the international community's fault and mistakes in Afghanistan. Lack of coordination, the most important thing, because international community for lot of operations and lot of activities didn't have a good coordination among themselves and as well with Afghanistan's government and with Afghanistan's security forces. We have our own priorities, and we should recognize our priorities by ourselves. And I must say that our priorities are totally different from the priorities in Europe and rest of the world. Just I give you a simple example. For instance, some NGOs who are donated from outside of Afghanistan, they are launching some kind of workshops in remote areas, like human rights workshops, gender workshops, in some area where people do not have food to eat. Then there is no need for human rights workshop there. People cannot read, but international organizations go there to train people about gender. They are dying for a piece of bread, not because of workshops of human rights. That's the thing the international community didn't consider Afghanistan's priorities. I didn't mean that all actions and all tasks in Afghanistan were wrong, just an example for being wrong in Afghanistan as well. And the other thing, I think providing more sustainable civilian assistance projects are important because mainly the short-term projects implementing in Afghanistan are going on. But we need for long-term sustainable projects in Afghanistan to build the infrastructures. That's our need. We should, if we want to win this war, we should win the hearts and minds of the people. And fortunately, mostly people are against some operations and some activities in Afghanistan. We should work with the people through the media and through other awareness programs. That's another thing. And let me say about the most important thing. I think international community do not have an exact definition about the enemy in Afghanistan and about their presence in Afghanistan. Why they are in Afghanistan? They are in Afghanistan to build a democratic country, a democratic government, or they there to defeat terrorism, or they there to democratize the country, the people. We do not have an exact definition of this, and we do not have an exact definition of Taliban, of Al-Qaeda, and terrorism in Afghanistan. For this reason, we are not in the right direction. First, we should recognize the enemies, and then we can go towards them to defeat them. For this reason, we need to change the war's map. I mean, if Afghanistan is not the source of terrorism, so war should be somewhere else, outside of the border of Afghanistan. And we have many logical reasons for this. For many years, our government admitted that Osama bin Laden is not in Afghanistan. Please find him outside of borders of Afghanistan, but no one tried to listen us. But after that, we were witness of the consequences because Osama bin Laden really was not in Afghanistan.
Madam Ambassador, probably I would interrupt you here and I would like to ask you a question which is to some extent consequence of what the other panelists already mentioned, that for stability and economic growth in Afghanistan, regional cooperation is one of the key words and one of policies to be taken. But it was also mentioned that it's very important that countries are really committed to regional cooperation, to come up with positive agenda and to some kind of political promise to be part of it. So what about Afghanistan? Is Afghanistan exactly also committed to such kind of regional cooperation? What is Afghanistan's position on that?
We Afghans think that without our neighbors' consensus, without having a consensus with our neighbors, we cannot do anything. And since 2002, we have tried to build good bridges with our neighbors to fill the gaps which is there. So we are so committed for regional cooperation, and actually the geographical location of Afghanistan give us and provide us a lot of opportunities to be a hub, a regional hub between our neighbors, between South Asia and Middle Asia. And we are the part of several regional organizations like ECO, like SARC, and we are trying our best. We are struggling hard to convince our neighbors, especially our immediate neighbors, to be honest regarding problems in Afghanistan, because many problems which are underground of Afghanistan now, but mainly originating from our neighboring countries, not only from Afghanistan. So Afghanistan is re-emerging as the center of Asia and as the Asian roundabout. We can say that Afghanistan can be a central point of interconnection of cultures, goods, ideas, and people in a very fast expanding Asia. So we can play a big role in this regard in regional cooperation. And regional cooperation actually is our foreign policy and the main priority for our government and for our people. And regarding the economic progress in Afghanistan and regarding economic projects in Afghanistan, I must say that that's really important, because most of the time international community have forgotten about the importance of economic projects in Afghanistan. For instance, when we clear some provinces or some areas from the terrorists, then there is need for economic project, I mean a civilian assistance project, because on that area then people need job opportunities, they need shelters, they need food. So we have to provide this kind of projects for them on that area, and that's as well important. As Ambassador told before, Afghanistan is potentially a rich country. Just a survey has estimated about our minerals, about our 30% minerals cost worth around $3 trillion. We have rich sources of minerals, gas, and oil, but we need to utilize these resources, and for utilizing these resources as well, we need experts, and we need equipments and advisors, which international community committed to provide this for Afghanistan. But we should not forget that for utilizing the minerals and resources as well, we need security. Without security, we cannot utilize and we cannot benefit from our sources.
Thank you very much. I assume that we have so many questions already here on the table that I think it will not be enough with all people in the audience to solve them. But now I open floor for the questions, and Ojārs Kalniņš was the first one raising his hand.
Yes, several of you talked about the need for developing an economic policy for Afghanistan that's independent of ISAF and that follows the conflict. The Northern Distribution Network has been functioning very well, supplying products to Afghanistan from Riga port through Kazakhstan and other countries. And many have talked about this as a potential future economic development strategy for Afghanistan. which could also solve some of the problems you're talking about in terms of resources, especially if it links to the Silk Road, other transport networks going from east to west. Is this something that the EU is looking at as a long-term possibility for economic development in Afghanistan?
Thank you. Please.
Yeah, of course, we pay big attention to help the Afghans to put in place necessary infrastructure, but that will come first and foremost with the private sector. We won't be big in terms of our investment in infrastructure. We have a division of labor among the actors. The European Union's contribution to Afghanistan is focusing on the capacity building, the rule of law, health sector and agriculture. While infrastructure is really led by Asian Development Bank and some other donors like the Indians are coming. Having said this, I mean, we have to be realistic that the new Silk Road project, which is now coming, I mean, in a package articulated comprehensively by our American colleagues, is going to be a big, very expensive undertaking. It's about $30 billion US, and I don't think anyone in Europe or even in America will be in a capacity to contribute under the current financial economic circumstances. So we'll need to attract private sector, and that's where the minerals will come into play with contracts like the one the Chinese have signed with the Afghans, putting in place committing $3 billion US in putting necessary infrastructure, because investor is also interested to have a long-term presence, but also to have an infrastructure that they could I mean, explore the wealth and then export to other countries. But we will retain our support as the European Union, specifically training necessary civil service in the country, and that's going to be not an easy one. Bearing in mind the society we're dealing with, 80% of illiteracy, with lack of basic decision-making processes and a lack of subnational governance. So our hands are full, and the EU is going to do what we can deliver in the niche areas, while the ADB, I think, and the private sector will have to do its own share.
Thank you. Here was a question. Yeah, please.
Thank you. Kurt Volker, formerly of the State Department and now doing lots of private things. I wanted to ask a question about progress and timelines. Vygaudas, you outlined a lot of the progress that's been made. I remember making similar remarks myself, and it's true. And Ambassador, you also gave us a reminder of a lot of the reasons why this progress is important, which I think is right. But we have different timelines here. We have timelines for the sustainability of this kind of progress and for Afghan leadership and ability to manage its security and its development and its governance. We have the timelines for withdrawal of Western or NATO military forces and even a reduction in some assistance perhaps, which is matched by public mood and economic possibilities in Europe and in the United States seeking to draw down as well. And then we have the timelines of our own political systems, which reflect these public wills and demand more and more. So I'm curious for both of you, how you look at this mismatch in the timelines. Can we get to the sustainability that we need within the timelines of our withdrawals and our political systems, or can we change the way that our withdrawals and our political systems and our economies are looking at this to give Afghanistan the chance that it needs to be sustainable?
Yeah, please.
Thank you, Kurt, for a very good question. You failed to mention that we also have elections coming in some countries, including in the US, but also main EU member states, which will reflect the mood and will definitely have a big impact on the future operations in Afghanistan. I totally agree with you that it is impossible, and we have to be honest with the Afghans and among ourselves, to reconcile the security, I mean, the 2014 with development needs of this country. I am pretty confident if the calendar of the drawdown is not compressed, that by the end of 2014 we will have Not fully professional, not an ideal yet, but basic Afghan security forces which will be able to provide security in the most part of Afghanistan. I think after 2014, even after one day the peace deal will be signed between the fighting sides, I think we will still face explosions, insurgencies, just because we're dealing with a phenomena which is in place in Afghanistan at the moment. Having said this, what I think is of critical importance is to acknowledge that as Afghanistan is the 5th poorest country in the world today, so it will remain 5th or 6th after 2014. And it will require staying power with development aid. It will require to use the transition dividend from all our countries who contribute militarily to sustain the development aid to the country. So as they start generate revenues from the mineral wealth, we still have, 5 to 10 years period to support them in that endeavor.
Thank you. Now I will ask you a question, Ambassador Ušackas, which can...
Janet, may I have my comment as well?
Sorry, yes, please.
Yeah, thank you. Of course, we do respect the timetable, and we know that Afghanistan is the responsibility of Afghans, not the others, and we are really appreciated for all things, all sacrifices which international community have paid to Afghanistan, and it would not be forgotten, of course. And we know about the timetable, deadline, and we do respect that. And after 2014, it should be a full hand-overing of security responsibilities to Afghan colleagues, and now we are getting ready for this, but we should not forget that all things depends on the realities on the ground. If in 2014 there is critical situation, then of course the international community would not withdraw. That's my personal points of view. I think international community once forgot Afghanistan, and then we were witness the consequences. And if this time international community forget about Afghanistan, for sure it would be another safe haven for terrorists and for extremists. But we can shift something. We can shift some military activities to the civilian projects in Afghanistan. Now international community's presence in Afghanistan is very costly, very, very costly. I'm sorry to say this, some of international troops are living in Afghanistan with luxury conditions, though our Afghan security forces, they are in a very bad situation. They just get around $50, $60 in a month, comparing to another international troops. So if international community pay a lot for this, if they shift this military activities to civilian assistance project, then Afghanistan benefits more. Of course, Afghanistan benefits more, especially some small countries who have a small number in Afghanistan. Of course, we are appreciated from their presence, because their presence is not only a number, but it's a political message as well, that they are with us. But if they shift their programs, then Afghanistan will benefit more than the time being.
Thank you. Questions are coming in from our online watchers of the conference. And one question is particularly asked to you, Ambassador Šatskis. The question states that since the panel is dealing with Central Asia, then our conference participant would be interested to find out about the state of affairs of the EU strategy for Central Asia released in 2007. The question states that from his or her perspective, this strategy was not really very effective. So therefore the question is, which effective instruments can the EU offer the Central Asian states to transform regimes towards into more democratic countries? Which implications has the Arab Spring on the authoritarian and totalitarian regimes in Central Asia? And could you please comment the rising influence of China in the region of Central Asia? So bunch of questions, probably you could combine them together and...
Well, I can redirect questions related to Central Asia to my colleague Pierre Morel, who is the EU Special Representative for Central Asia, and probably connect the person who asked. But speaking from the place where I am, from Kabul, Afghanistan, as I said in my introductory remarks, I mean, I strongly believe, and it's evident, that there is a huge untapped potential of regional cooperation. The region faces the same problems, be it Chinese, be it Central Asians, Iranians, or Pakistanis, or Afghans, or Gulf countries. It's a terrorism, it's radicalism, and it is also drug trafficking. And those threats derive from Afghanistan, but they go across the borders. And I think we need to support and empower, also based on our example of cooperation within Europe, to empower the Central Asian countries, South Asian countries, and others to take a lead and to address that in a concerted effort. Vis-a-vis a Chinese role, I think the Chinese is playing a very important role. First of all, bringing the private investment into Afghanistan, because the answer at the end of the day is really how can we help the Afghans to stand up on their own feet, and how can they start generating revenues. I mean, the state will not do that. The private sector will do that, and the Chinese is pioneering. The second one, I think, is a very important aspect where China can play a considerable role, is to use their own all-weather relations with Pakistan in promoting better understanding and confidence and trust between Pakistan and Afghanistan, which is truly a very important aspect. Thank you.
But what about the EU strategy for Central Asia?
Well, that's what I said. I mean, I'm not in charge for the EU strategy in Central Asia. I'm in charge for the EU action plan on Afghanistan.
Okay.
And I'll be glad to develop on that.
Okay. Yeah. Minister.
Yes, I would like to add something. Of course, EU strategy for Central Asia is one of the many, one among many EU strategies. Of course, mainly strategies are devoted to implement democracy, values, common values, develop economy, and so. This is a very good task, and problem is just implementation. And of course, it's quite clear that in Central Asia and also in Afghanistan, not all political groups or leaders of the state are really very interested to implement all those ideas which is developed by European politicians. That's why this is one-side problem. But at the same time, of course, Europe tries to cooperate, even such political circumstances which exist in those states. Due to also Europe's interests, Europe's own interests, economic interests, energy interests, and so. That's why sometimes ideas is not going together with the implementation and with realities in the region. I would like also touch upon one very important subject, which is Northern Distribution Network. And with this, Latvia have our own experience. We getting this experience in such way with such project. This really is very important, and the aim is to help to stabilize situation in Afghanistan. But at the same time, we must have, and we have many partners to realize that plan. And we have Russia, we have Uzbekistan, and so on and so on. But when we want to deepen this project, when it is necessary to do, then we find out quite many obstacles, and obstacles are different and rooted in the own plans of leaders of the state. We would like to develop both direction this traffic of the goods, but unfortunately one of the transit state not allows it. Just one direction, that's it. And even NATO General Secretary, who would like to somehow effectivize this route, can't change the situation at the moment.
Thank you very much. Here was a question. Yeah, please identify yourself. Yeah.
Toms Rostoks, University of Latvia. Ambassador Bakhtari, you correctly mentioned that the future of Afghanistan will ultimately depend upon Afghanis themselves. And my question is related to this remark, and the question goes to Special Representative Andrušauskas and to you. How much legitimacy does Afghanistan's current government enjoy?
Who will start?
Shall I start?
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's a rhetoric question. I think the answer is clear. We have the government in place. We have President Karzai, who was elected a couple of years ago. We have the parliament in place, and I had a really great pleasure to observe the elections and to help to organize elections, because European Union was the largest contributor with 35 million euros in organization of the elections which took place last year. And the fact, of course, the elections were not ideal, neither presidential nor parliamentary in terms of procedure, and we have to be honest, there's still a way to go before full democratic elections in Afghanistan, first and foremost, since we don't have data available. We don't know how many voters are in Afghanistan. We don't know how many people live in Afghanistan. Is it 20 million, 30 million, 40 million? No one knows. There is no statistics, no data available. We don't have a register. So, secondly, also due to the security situation, I mean, some people were unable to vote. Having said this, it was what an awarding experience coming from the Baltics, who have just enjoyed the freedom 20 years ago, to see the people, despite of the threats, intimidation, in the queue to cast a vote. I mean, October, when was that last year, 28 or 26, when the elections took place, it was biggest amount of incidents, biggest amount of security incidents in the course of last 9 years. Despite of that fact, we still had about 30% of Afghans, approximately if we count 30 million inhabitants, about 10 million who went to vote. So there is movement towards more transparent and better governance in Afghanistan. However, we have to be realistic, it's going to take some time. And I hope and I congratulate the Afghan government and Afghan people that finally the parliament is back in place, the drama, the saga has finished, and it's about time for them to address some of the critical issues of electoral reform, like single non-transferable vote in place they have, which impedes for development of political parties in the country. And that's where, again, the experience of the Baltics, Central Europeans and others can certainly be beneficial. But we have government in place, and we have to support the government as they move forward with economic reconstruction and, not least, critical aspect of reconciliation.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Yes, Afghanistan government's representative, this question is a bit strange for me, because I believe to our legitimacy. Of course, as Ambassador told, there was some problems during the election, and as I told you before, we have constitution. this constitution means that there is legitimacy in Afghanistan, and we have passed 2 presidential elections and 2 parliamentarian elections. We had faced problems regarding frauds and these kind of things in Afghanistan, but these things do not mean that there is no legitimacy in Afghanistan. President Karzai is the elected president of Afghanistan, and international community, United Nations, and our people believe this, I think. Afghanistan is in a transition period, and as the criteria for transitional period, of course, faces some problems, which is normal when some nation starts to build democracy. Then of course there is problems, and now people are exercising their rights and their and the democracy's values, and now they are on the process of exercising, and that's quite normal. And I don't believe that there is a government in the world that 100% people approve this and believe that on the elections there was no fraud.
Thank you. The question was here. Please bring the microphone. Yeah.
Thank you. I would like to be a little bit provocative with regard of the EU strategy towards Central Asia. If you look at Central Asia, it is a hotspot of different interests. To count them, look at United States, Turkey, Iran, even India, China, Russia, and the EU. They all have their own interests vis-à-vis Central Asia. And they have their own strategies, and there is a fundamental difference. As you have explained to us, the main interest of the European Union are human rights, more democracy, rule of law, and so on. The outcome of such a strategy means that you have to get rid of the leadership of those countries. Yeah, you are not. You have no interest that they will stay, because they are not interested in changing their system, because they will lose their power. But if you look at Russia, China, even India, they pursue their strategy without asking for democracy, without asking for human rights. Who will be successful at the end of these both sides?
Thank you. Minister?
Thank you. Of course, we are representing in every dialogue European Union and European common values, also Euro-Atlantic affairs. That's why I'm sure that we, in every discussion, even with partners who have different views on how to govern their states, we should be in the positions which characterize European Union. Rule of law, human rights, and so and so. Of course, everybody knows what's really going on in those states. This is difficulty and realities. Some realism of policy always is in place, and some compromise is always going on. That's why I would like to say we act today, but we think about tomorrow. This is my opinion.
Thank you. Here was a question.
May I add a few words?
Oh, okay, please.
When we speak about Central Asia, of course, we understand that there are 5 different countries, and you cannot assess all 5 countries by saying that there is no democracy, no rule of law, and that's why there is no progress in the relationship and EU strategy in the Central Asian region. And we in our region, we witnessed the changes which took place in 20 years in the development of democratic institutions, in the introduction of the rule of law, and in on other areas, not only economic and energy interests in our region. And we ourselves are interested in the partnership with the European Union and in the development of the strategy aimed at different dimensions. Human rights including.
Thank you. Please, here was a question. Yeah, please bring the microphone here.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I have I'm Temur Gegelzan from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Georgia. I have a question to, first of all, Mr. Rushatskas and also to other members of the panel. I mean, Mr. well aware, Georgia has deployed up to 1,000 troops in Helmand, mostly in Helmand, in Afghanistan or other places without any national caveats, which is a quite significant contribution, and we are going to stay there as long as possible. On the other hand, in this context, do you think the 2015 is a timeline, right time to withdraw from Afghanistan, provided that it's also quite a short period of time to develop the country in a way that would prevent the Taliban or other forces to recruit people of Afghanistan into the terror kind of organizations? So what's your opinion and what's the opinion of other members of the panel, please?
Well, first of all, I would like to commend the Georgian commitment and contribution to the operations in Afghanistan and Helmand and the sacrifices you went. I think the 10th soldier was just killed the other night in Helmand, and I think it demonstrates commitment and maturity of Georgian society and Georgian people to share the burden of responsibilities beyond your own country. Having said this, and answering your question on 2014, as I said, we are in Afghanistan not for good. We are because of our national interest, because we don't want to see Afghanistan becoming the harbor of international terrorism. Having said this, I mean, we also understand that the Afghans should be on the lead, and Afghans should take over responsibility. So our contribution we make while the infighting continues in some areas of Afghanistan is really to develop Afghan security forces, the army and the police, who would be sufficiently professional and sustainable. By sustainable, I mean that we'll need still to cash and support Afghan security forces for considerable time beyond 2014 because they don't have revenues. They don't have income to do by themselves. And that's something we have to draw from the transition dividend. But by the 2014, I believe they will have over 300 security forces who will be sufficiently professional to assume greatest responsibility for security. At the same time, we know that the United States and Afghan government is negotiating strategic partnership agreement, and I don't want to preclude or preempt the outcome of that, but I mean, it is clear that even beyond 2014, the Afghans will need not only to support financially the security forces, but also to retain training facilities. EU police mission most likely will remain in training Afghan civilian police, which is very much appreciated by the Afghans first and foremost. And I think the Afghans will still require considerable support in developing, mentoring and coaching Afghan security forces, Afghan National Army as well.
Who else would like to answer to this question?
Well, I also want to add that we're interested in the development of the situation in Afghanistan when Afghani people after 2014 are not left alone to struggle with terrorism and other threats and challenges. And we are trying to be active, I mean Kazakhstan trying to be active in the international activities, helping Afghanistan from the very beginning and cooperating with the international forces, providing airspace and giving the opportunity for transit of goods to Afghanistan, and contributing with the humanitarian assistance. From starting last year, we have been educating Afghani young men and women in Kazakhstan, allocating for these purposes $50 million from our budget, and 153 students last year and 179 students this year are joining to the first group now in Kazakhstan. And we are also training police representatives from Afghanistan. But we understand that not only bilaterally but multilaterally we also can be more active, and with this in point, it is agreed that on the 15th of November the 12th session of International Contact Group on Afghanistan will have a meeting in Astana, and it will also discuss the possibilities of further assistance and involvement of international community in the situation in Afghanistan.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
Maybe in short terms, of course I would like very highly evaluate Georgia's commitment to Afghan's mission. It's really something extraordinary, and I believe that the international society in future will satisfy you with more positive support for your challenges to join NATO and some other international institutions. But of course, this exit strategy is really very important for Afghanistan, because we should keep in mind these problems which exist already today, and some trends we really can evaluate if we read some information which is coming from there. And just one example, I read a few days ago that again insurgents, their military activities increase exactly in those regions where responsibility is transferred to Afghanistan local institutions. This really should be very important aspect kept in mind.
Thank you very much. Please, one question here, just in the front, and then over there.
Yes, I am İlter Turan from Istanbul Bilgi University. It seems that the discussion has focused almost exclusively on Afghanistan, although when I look at the title of the session, Central Asia seems to figure heavily. As much as I understand, as regards Central Asia, the European Union has a sort of democratization strategy. My question would be, are there contingencies that would necessitate more interest in the region that you're prepared for? I mean, there seems to be quite a number of possibilities. You know, we have seen, for example, in Uzbekistan, a rather violent put down of regional disturbances. In Kyrgyzstan, we did see sort of domestic disturbances that assumed international dimensions. There is a water problem among these countries which nobody has referred to. So by focusing exclusively on Afghanistan, we might be missing out on some sort of potential dangers looming in the horizon for which there seems to be no real interest. Is there an interest? Do you think about these things, or do you just say, you know, we like democracy, etc.? So.
Well, of course there is an interest from the European Union, and as it was stated, European Union has a strategy vis-a-vis Central Asia. European Union is engaged with Central Asian countries and with regional players. Again, as I said, I don't want to step into the foreign fields or waters, but what I want to say, looking from the Kabul perspective, Central Asian countries are important neighbors to Afghanistan, And I think one of the key issues, not dwelling upon the internal politics of those countries, which again goes beyond my remit of responsibilities, but I think on the regional platform, as the session was supposed to discuss, there is untapped potential which we have to encourage. We ourselves, just from Afghanistan, EU budget annually devote about 20 million euros on different regional projects between Afghanistan and its neighbors. A big bulk of that amount goes in putting in place the customs facilities, border crossing points between Afghanistan and Uzbekistan, between Afghanistan and Tajikistan. We're also working on the border with Iran, as a matter of fact, as we also have been upgrading the transit facility, which is critical importance between Afghanistan, in Torham, between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And that's something we haven't mentioned sufficiently, but again, I mean, if we can help the region to move from the paradigm of conflicting geopolitical interests penetrated by history of wars and conflicts, and try to put in place a foundation of interconnectivity, interdependence through the critical energy projects such as the TAPI, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, I mean, that would be a huge change. That would be a huge impetus to change exactly the paradigm I was speaking about. And I think there is enough common sense among the people in the region, and they will need support from ADB, from European Union, Americans and others to shape that new agenda.
Thank you very much. We are slowly moving to the final stage of our session. So there are two questions. I saw one hand over there and then one hand there, and then we will finish with questions.
Yes, Jānis Garsons, I'm from Latvia, Minister of Defense. Actually, my question goes to all panelists. My understanding is there's thoughts about organizing a new Bonn conference, and probably it's something symbolic. But when I hear what is going on sometimes in Afghanistan and those problems what the soldiers are facing, I mean, a problem, it seems that there is too difficult to ensure the link between Kabul and provinces. My question is it the right time to review the model which has been set in the first Bonn conference and probably give more powers or authority to regions of provinces of Afghanistan, as it used to be historical, because Afghanistan have never been previously governed very centralized, and decide something change to that model. Thank you.
Probably we could collect questions and then you can respond, since this question was asked to all of you. So, lady over there, and then you will be the last one.
Natasha Kurt, King's College London. I'd just like to say here to the gentleman from Istanbul who said we should pay a lot more attention to the broader region, and I think the ambassador here from Afghanistan, she suggested that Afghanistan was very much interested in regional cooperation. Of course, we do have the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Nobody's mentioned that. I mean, there may be good reason why we haven't mentioned it, but only the other day, Tajikistan, I think, was asking Russia for help on the border with Afghanistan, which is very porous and has practically no border controls at all. Russia is actually quite reluctant to take on that role, but it seems as though nobody really wants to take on these kind of roles. So once the international community has, if you like, finished its work in terms of security and so on in Afghanistan, has actually left Afghanistan, who exactly is going to take on, these kind of roles? Or will countries like Tajikistan also run the danger of becoming a safe haven for Taliban or other such groupings?
Thank you. And then last one here, please.
Peter Sweets, and for the purposes of this conference, I've been given title independent expert, whatever it means. But from spending around 1 year in Afghanistan, in various civilian positions during the last 5 years, I mean, it's impossible not to notice all the problem issues you already mentioned, starting with underperformance in development and governance, and ending with deeply controversial elections and still a lot of problems in security sector. So, and in above all that, or maybe because of that, it seems that relations between international community and Afghan government are more tense than ever. So my question is, I mean, given the short period of phasing out by international community, how should the cooperation between international community and the Afghan government proceed to address these issues and to reduce the high levels of distrust in Kabul at the moment?
Thank you. Probably we could combine those questions, and I could ask you very shortly to answer. So, is it time to review issues in new Bonn conference, and how to bridge the gap of trust? Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think it's always useful, and it's always good time to review something, and especially in this regard to review Afghanistan's relations with international community. So in this conference there is not only this reviewing, but they will discuss about the cooperation and about the assistance after 2014. What would be the next projects and what would be the next relations between Afghanistan and international community. It's another topic in this conference, and as well talking about Afghanistan economic structures, because we have been talking about political transition and about military transition, but we are not talking about economic transition. We need economic transition as well. Just some minutes before, Ambassador told that growing of GDP in Afghanistan mostly related to international communities and ISAF presence in Afghanistan. So what would happen to Afghanistan economy after 2014? That's another main topic. It would be another main topic in Bonn conference. So I consider this conference as very important and useful conference towards of Afghanistan's interest and benefits, and as well international community. And regarding the regional cooperation in the region, as I said before, Afghanistan is much enthusiastic having and launching regional cooperation. Without regional cooperation, we cannot bring peace and stability in Afghanistan and as well in the region. Some countries in our region, of course, could play big role in this regard. For instance, Turkey, China, and India. These three countries are important for Afghanistan. There is more confidence regarding these three countries and more friendly relationship between among these countries. And just a short comment about the relation between Afghanistan government and international community. In my point of view, we have good relation, our relations in a high level. We have mutual understanding. Of course, sometimes we criticize each other. That's quite normal, but in some other senses, we have good cooperation and good understanding. That's my point.
Thank you. Very shortly.
Well, I mean, first of all, Bonn conference. What is important to outline both for the Afghans and international community is that the Bonn conference will not be the Bonn conference 1. It will not be about the constitution. It will not be about a new government, because we trust the Afghans have constitution, and we trust that the Afghans have to cast the vote and decide who represents them in the parliament or in the elections for the president in 2014. What the Bonn conference will be about, as Ambassador mentioned, is first about taking the stock of the transition, sending the message of reassurance to the Afghans that international community will provide staying power engagement with the Afghans. Americans coming with an agreement, NATO has an agreement with Afghanistan, and I hope that by the Bonn conference, European Union will also issue the mandate to start negotiations on cooperation agreement on cooperation, partnership and development with Afghanistan. And the third one, it will also be an occasion to take stock where reconciliation process is moving, led by the Afghans themselves. Having said this, and addressing your particular point on subnational governance, I think we're all learning by doing. The transition of the first 7 territories have clearly proven the lack of administrative capacity or local governance in the provinces and districts, and that's something what is now Minister Zahiwal of Finance and Dr. Ashraf Ghani, with our support, are trying to address in putting in place just a basic financing and budgeting systems in the provinces, which is going to be a critical pillar as we advance further in transition. In terms of trust, I mean, I trust Afghan people and I trust Afghan government that they have to take responsibilities and leadership to run their own country, and I think that's the way forward.
Thank you. Ambassador, please.
Well, Kazakhstan hopes that both Istanbul and Bonn conferences will be effective on the discussion of the issues of the process of reconciliation and of delegating more powers for the country future to the Afghani themselves. And besides, taking into consideration the financial difficulties the world faces, of course it's important that the questions of better governance and transparency are also touched.
Thank you. Minister.
Okay, I will not be so smart to change the Bonn conference schedule. That's why let's allow to keep conference as it is going to be prepared. But I would like to say that, of course, it was a very interesting panel because I learned here very lot about quite many aspects, and I would like really support the opinion which was mentioned that we need to understand the process more largely, and of course regionally states around Afghanistan should be more effectively involved in the future perspective, future stabilization and peace process. How to implement this is of course a task for all international society, community, and Latvia, we of course are a state with limited resources. Unfortunately, I would like to say we have no one embassy or representation in the region, but anyway we should understand what's going on there and how with limited resources we can participate in this very important process. And we try to do, and we are extremely proud about those success, about those people who participate there, who represent Latvia, and we're really proud about them.
And in the end of this panel, I would like to thank 2 of our participants who encouraged us to talk about wider regional arrangement. So probably it will be the topic for the next conference and at least for 2 panels, otherwise we couldn't cover all issues here. Thank you for that. Then I have an announcement for those watching the conference on the internet. The discussion will be continued by Ambassador Bakhtari and Ansis Bogustovs. And now I invite you all to thank our panelists.